we've had 3 speakers already today, and it's been a wonderful
Can you guys hear
session. Me? Yes, we can. Welcome, Sirisha. So we've learned from yesterday, we've lived for today and hope for tomorrow, and we have to plan for the future as well. But the important thing is not to stop questioning, as Albert Einstein said. So with that, I would like to introduce our next keynote speaker for the morning, Ms. Sirisha Voruganti. Sorry if I pronounced it incorrectly. She's the Managing Director at JP Morgan Chase. She leads architecture, data, and digital technology for consumer and community banking at JP Morgan Chase and out of India. She brings 29 plus years of global executive experience spanning research, labs, product engineering, strategy, mergers, acquisitions, business development, and consulting across public and private sectors. Most recently, she was the Executive VP and CTO of Architecture and Shared Services for MasterCard and led MasterCard India. She was the first group executive leader in technology for MasterCard outside the US. Her prior work experiences include Tech Mahindra Limited as a distinguished fellow and senior VP and head of innovation, where she was awarded the Mahindra Innovation Award 5 years in a row, 2 National Telecom Awards, Indian Express Group Award for Innovation, and many more. She started her career as a scientist with the Defense Labs. She has a master's degree in electronics and communication engineering and also holds patents in cloud-based versatile system for radiological images. She did an executive management program from Harvard Business School. Her previous experiences include MD at JP Morgan Chase for 3 years, associated with Mobius Works Private Limited for 1 year and 8 months. She is also a member of Society for Women Engineers India Corporate Council and Society for Women Engineers for a year and 9 months. She's been the member of Board of Advisors at Herb Power for 2 years and a member advisory board at Grey Matters Capital. Over to you, Ms. Sirisha.
Thank you so much, for being so kind in terms of reading out the introduction. It felt very flattering for a moment. I'm extremely excited and honored to be here as part of a session that I'm doing for you guys at the IAC 3.0. So thank you very much. The session I've been asked to do this morning is FinTech and digital transformation, something really close to my heart. And what I've done is divided the presentation into 3 segments, and I hope there is some time. So the way I've split this is really to give you a flavor of the landscape of the financial sector globally and the opportunities that it entails. The second is really about innovation, and there's so much buzz around FinTech, right? And how it's disrupting the financial sector. So I'll talk a little about FinTech and the opportunities therein for large banks like ourselves, and of course, many other banks globally as well. And the areas of relevance in terms of to the banks, not just from a front-end innovation, but in terms of the back-end processes and things like that. So there is innovation, which is at the front end, where the consumers like you and me see. But there is also a whole lot of things that are happening in the back end, right? Then typically the problems that we try to solve are fourfold, which is faster, quicker, better, and at lower cost. And each one of these, I will try and talk about in terms of, how the FinTech industry or how some of these solutions that we are developing and augmenting with the FinTech segment are helping us address, right? So to the first point, in terms of just giving you the massivity of the global financial segment, right? And before I joined the segment, I didn't realize the amount of innovation that there was and the amount of tech innovation that there was in firms like, ourselves. So just the scale of the segment, right? It's almost 1/5 of the global GDP is actually held by the financial segment. close to that $5 trillion is of currency is traded on a daily basis, right? And it offers close to about 6.3 million jobs just in one geography in the US alone. And if you couple it with everything else, jobs across the globe, it's massive. And in terms of what the banks do, right, it's not just the consumer bank, but there is also a huge amount that we do around investment banking, which is for corporate clients. It is, all the private equity. It is the asset wealth management. It's about investment strategies, and so on and so forth. So there is a lot of technology backbone that we actually use for each of these segments. There's a lot around cross-border payments as well. And as you know, there's so much that's happening around cross-border payments, whether it is GDPR, every country has its own regulation in terms of data privacy rules and so on and so forth. So there's much happening on that segment as well from an innovative standpoint. Right? And fraud and risk is another big one in terms of spaces that we look at. And if you look at just card transactions alone, there is $22 billion a year of fraud losses that the banking sector accumulates. So that's an opportunity. I mean, if you talk to me about opportunities for the banking sector, it is about handling data better. It's about fraud and risk. It's about using data to create newer opportunities for consumers, right? And it's also for solving some of these the cross-border payment sort of problems that I spoke about. In addition to that, another opportunity that there is across the globe for the financial sector is close to 2 billion people are in the unbanked and the underbanked segment. And why is that important? Because a lot of financial and fintech solutions today are actually bringing these unbanked and underbanked population into the financial sphere, right, through financial inclusion solutions, and I'll talk about some of them as well. So this is the outlay of the segment, and these are the opportunities that the segment throws. And just JP Morgan alone, right, in terms of the amount of data, the amount of dollar that we handle, it's about 320 petabytes of data that actually is stored on our servers as we manage global data. Then we're talking about, 20.6 billions of global transactions. So it's just huge. And the opportunity, as I said, that it entails is huge. Now, coming to innovation and why is innovation so important? It's important in any sector and segment, not just the banking sector alone. And what is innovation? What is this whole thing about, right? It's about seeing those unseen dots, all of us, in fact, see dots every day. But it's just a few that see these dots of opportunity. That see these dots that you and I probably don't see. And that's how a number of innovations came into existence and being, right? And today we take many of them for granted, whether it is fire, whether it is, the internet, whether it is the laptop, the computer, it can go on and on, right? And this is really about seeing the unseen. And I think, the reason I talk about that is I correlate that very much to the fintechs, right? And these guys today are picking and choosing those areas of opportunities because banks like ourselves are, still managing the vault and trying to do a great job at managing the vault. But there are a lot of these niche opportunities, in terms of providing easier customer experience or better handling of some of those, problem areas that I spoke about. And that's where the fintech segment is coming in. Now, what is fintech? We hear this term every day. We talk about so much of investment that is actually getting into the fintech world, right? Billions of dollars that is coming in terms of investments into newer areas, whether it's in the Silicon Valley, whether it is into places like Bangalore, Hyderabad. In India, we have multiple of these centers which are the hot hubs for the fintech, right? Now, what exactly is fintech, and what does this segment entail for all of us? Fintech stands for financial technology, And it is really the innovative use of technology in the design and delivery of financial services. Now, what exactly and how exactly is this revolutionizing the banking industry, and how is this actually shaping the future of banking is what I will talk about a little. And of course, we can exchange further later on during the Q&A. Now, how is fintech transforming the banking world? We talked about all the opportunities. We talked about the various problem statements that we have within the bank. And there are a ton of new technologies that are coming in, whether it is in AI, or machine learning, peer-to-peer lending. There is a lot that's happening around big data. Blockchain is, again, the new kid on the block, where we're looking at potential areas around blockchain and how it could help the banking sector. Crowdfunding, digital payments. We've seen so much around digital payments happen in India itself during the demonetization phase, and of course beyond, and that's continued. And I think we've seen again an upsurge of digital payments during the COVID times as well, right? And there have been many other innovations that have happened around, digitization during this phase. Robo-advisors is another one. And these are just a few that that are top of mind for me as that I can recall. But there are so much more that is happening in the technology segment, and banks and financial firms are actually looking at augmenting what they have with some of these solutions so that they're able to provide better customer experiences. Right. And as I said, the watchwords for all of us is, can we do transactions faster? Can we provide better user experiences? Can we, provide transactions on card or otherwise at a lower cost? Can we provide a better in-branch experience? Can we provide other services to customers that guys are looking at, right? That they don't have to potentially leave our app on a phone, and they can do many, many more things, right? And I believe every crisis that we've seen across the globe now, whether it is the days of the Great Depression or the crisis of the multiple crises that we've had in the 90s or 2000s, and where we've had these downturns, and today because of COVID, has created opportunities for these fintechs, right? And every crisis, I think the banks have been dealing with some of those big problems that they have, around managing the vault. Because if you look at fraud and risk, it's actually increased 600 times. And so the large institutions are being keepers of finances and money, have to take care of those, of really ensuring the customer, money is safe with us. And so there's a lot that we're investing into fraud and risk or regulatory compliances and so on and so forth. And innovation maybe is actually, going on to a back burner when we're dealing with these large crises. And that is the opportunity. And that is where many of these fintechs are actually coming in. And I think it's actually good for the segment, but that is, and as I said, every crisis is an opportunity for the fintechs. And at the same time, right, as banks are dealing with a crisis, as there are these global problems that we have, we see technologies evolving. The way people use technology is also changing because of these times and trends, right? Now, and some of the things that come to our mind about technology and the way things are changing, whether it is the use of the iPhone, for instance, whether it is Airbnb, whether it is, Uber, WhatsApp, WeChat. There's so many of these, newer technologies that are coming in because of the necessity of, during various times. And what we are seeing is there is a huge gap between, the requirements of the customers and potentially what banks are dealing with, right? And the gap is so huge. It's not just the companies that I listed, but some of the very, very large, other tech companies are trying to get into the space. For instance, you see Facebook. There is Amazon as well in this space, right? Facebook's actually, I think, got about 50 different licenses around regulatory licenses in the US alone, which allows Facebook users to actually use the Messenger app for transfer of funds, right? Amazon's the same. I mean, they recently experimented with offering student loans on their platform. Now, Alibaba is another one that's come into these segments. So the reason I'm calling these guys out is that the opportunity in the fintech space is so huge in terms of just the dollar availability because of the users that there are, right? That many, not just the small startups, but there are these large companies that are also vying for the same opportunity. And and why is that so? If I just call out an application like, say, WeChat, right, which is a messaging app, but is being commonly used for the transfer of money. And I think in the last year, they've actually processed close to about $8 billion of red envelope transactions. Now, what does WeChat allow for? It allows, one to make investments. It allows you to book, say, a doctor's appointment. It allows you to order a taxi. It allows you to donate to charity. It also allows you to find the date without actually leaving the app. And why am I calling these out? Because these are user experiences that the millennial customers that, guys like ourselves are trying to address use on a regular basis. And that's what these apps are providing. And that's the gap that they're actually fulfilling, where maybe the large, banks are not able to. But the partnership works really well. So, I mean, if we look at the sort of partnerships that JP has established, WeChat's one of our partners. We have a partnership with DoorDash and multiple other service providers, because, it is also an opportunity that we do not want to lose, right? And we definitely do want to provide better user experiences. So it's not just trying to do these in silos, but the fintech is also allowing for multiple of these networking opportunities, that there are with institutions like ourselves. And and I believe there will be more and more such, right, in the future. And why not so? Because if you are comfortable with sharing, say, pictures on Facebook, and you trust Facebook as much, I'm sure you'd be fairly comfortable with doing a financial transaction there. Similarly, if you're using the Amazon app to do your grocery or whatever, you would be fairly comfortable to also do a financial transaction using their application as well. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is because of the segment, what that segment is looking for, and what these enterprises are offering at this point in time. And thousands, there are so many, fintechs that are coming and filling in these gaps. In fact, we've done a lot, of partnerships, as I said, with companies like DoorDash, where this is primarily for getting your food. We also have applications where you can contain the amount of money that your child can spend, for instance. There are companies, which are providing gamification, or we're looking at those segments of gamification and immersive technologies that we can provide to customers, where and kids are actually happy with such applications. I mean, when I say kids, I'm talking about the millennial customers that we have are really happy with using that. It could be, to bring about a saving habit in a child, or it could be about earning points as we gamify some of these applications, and so on, right? We also are more and more trying to use robo-advisors, and primarily because you must have heard of not just for answering the operational and service calls, but also using robotics AI at the back end to provide, if there is better loyalty solutions to customers. Or it can also be about understanding your user pattern and trying to provide the next thing that you should be doing, right, with the bank or with your own finances. Or if you are, traveling to another location, to really advise you on places to go to, restaurants to visit, and so on and so forth as well. So we're using a lot of these technologies at the back end to ensure, the better provision of services. Now, the other thing, the fintech industry is doing, as well as not the fintechs coupled with our own, innovation, is things like, as I told you earlier, bringing customers in, right? The 2 billion that are unbanked and underbanked today, who have no access to, say, a bank account or no way to borrow money. And this is actually, perpetrating this cycle of the vicious cycle of poverty, right? Now, with some of these solutions, we're actually bringing them into the finance segment where easy loans are possible, and many such. And this is not just a developing world problem, right? But even if we look at places like, say, Miami, I think there are 20% of the population is unbanked. So bringing them into the financial space is so important, and we're trying to do that with some of these new solutions, that are now available. Now, the good news really is that for the first time, and this really is for the first time that it's happening in the global financial history, that you're using such applications to bring a large population into the larger financial sphere of, globally. And if you look at the last 5 years, and the focus has really been on, four things, if I may call them, right? First, user experience. Second is more convenience. Third is better access. And fourth is the cost. And many more things have helped, innovation that's happening, not just in the fintech and the banking space, but there are allied segments which are helping this, right? The innovation that's happening around devices, the innovation that's happening around networks, the innovation that's happening, which is better connectivity, and so on and so forth, is what is all of this leading to, right? Today, you see fintech is connected to, connecting fintech to, say, things like IoT or the Internet of Things. And really bringing maybe banking into everyday life. For instance, you're talking about ordering grocery from your refrigerator. I think Samsung has provided that solution. There is, or connected cars, right? There are solutions where your insurance policy can be, brought down based on the quality of driving. And if you are certified as a good driver, you're probably, the car automatically knows that you are a safe driver and automatically notifies your insurance company, and the amount of what you have to pay out is automatically brought down, right? So there are many such instances of the use of technology that are happening because of advances that are happening in other areas as well, right? And the other statistic that we actually look at is, again, millennials and what they would like to do and how they would like to look at things, right? And I think more than 70% of the millennials actually would probably like to go to a dentist rather than listen to a banker. So and the reason I call this out is that is also a problem that we have on our mind when we are talking about better user experiences to match up to every age group of the customer base that we have. So as things are changing, banks too are looking at, really embedding this culture of entrepreneurship and innovation, in more than one ways. Now, what I've talked about is at the front end. There is a lot that's happening on the back end, right, in terms of how we manage data. And I told you about the volume of data that we have. We're talking about close to about 320 petabytes of data that we're dealing with now, and there's a lot of regulatory reporting that we have to do. So we hold data for about 7 years within the bank, right? And that's really country-specific policies that there are, and banks in each of those countries have to keep the data that long. But in terms of storage procedures, right, how do we store that data? How do we ensure that we're not incurring huge costs on data storage? And why is all of that important? Because all of us invest a lot into technology. And you might say, what about a bank and how is that investing into technology and things like that? We invest close to that $11+ billion into technology every year. Now, we would like to have more and more of that investment spent into innovation rather than just running the bank, right? When I say running the bank, it's about storage of data, for instance. We'd like to, maybe store data in low cost, memory rather than really keep all of the data in the same place. So we'd like to classify data based on usage, and we'd like to store it as cold data, warm data, and hot data in terms of the usage of data that we have, right? That is one lever that we should use in terms, or could use or use to bring down the cost of data storage, which is a big problem for us. The second is and data and handling of data and the multiple systems that we have is definitely a huge problem that we try to address. The second is modernization that we go through, right? So, all of us, we've been around for about 100 years. And if you look at the amount of legacy that we have, that's substantial. So moving a lot of that, could be mainframes, could be the way we've architected solutions. So moving away from that into, more from the monolith into microservices-based architectures is another big initiative that we have. The third is, using the cloud better, right? I mean, we banks have historically been slightly slow at moving to public cloud. Of course, we have internal cloud systems that we use, but moving to public cloud, right? That's another huge initiative that we have within our organizations and many like ourselves, which is really, again, looking at speed. And when we talk about speed, the move to the cloud, the move to newer architectures is extremely important. And it's a big, big focus for firms like ourselves. Again, to bring down cost, to ensure we're more innovative, to be able to do things faster, and so on and so forth, right? So the other aspect that we're doing is the data on edge. Again, to be able to really quickly access data if we want to provide better user experiences, to bring in things like chatbots, to be able to provide better offerings on savings to customers, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot that's happening on each of these segments, and innovation, not just to the front end, but innovation at the back end is supremely important for us. And we're looking at each one of those spaces. And in the day of digitization, each of these becomes important. And in COVID times, for instance, we had to move close to 200,000 employees to work from home. So network connectivity, even just for working from home, was a big problem that we had to address. How our gateways were constructed. What did we have to do there to ensure, people are able to really, get the feel of office from home. We actually also did this PPP and the small business loans that we offered in the United States, right? And we were always taking manual applications across counters. Now we had to digitize that whole thing in terms of so there was a lot around biometrics. There was a lot around, that we did. We also had to improve solutions around voice biometrics. So it's really, and there are, as I said, ours is there is some that we do, there is some that we believe, rely on this huge ecosystem of fintech that we support and work with as well. And how do we make it easier for fintechs to work with us? There are these APIs, that we open up externally, and need to be very careful when we do that, because it opens, it makes us and our networks very vulnerable to as the data hubs increase, right? So there is a lot for us to look as we kind of look at the external ecosystem. Now, in all this, and there is so much happening, and the space is so interesting, and you name an area, and today I see that extremely, extremely relevant in a banking or a financial segment space, right? So, well, that's all I have today. I just wanted to tell you that it's an extremely exciting time, and there is just so much happening, and the opportunity in the space is so very vast. And we constantly look for partnership and great brains like yourselves to come in and support us in this endeavor as we look at creating more exciting services for the consumers. So that's about it.
Thank you, Ms. Sirisha. I'll call Shrujan to ask the questions from the chat box. Shrujan.
Yes. Sorry for the little response. Anyone has any questions? You can put them in the chat box.
Yeah, so I have a hard stop at 12:15. I think we have about 5 minutes for questions, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. So we do have one question from a student. So what is the extent of acceptance/approval among the corporate banks and fintechs of blockchain, as it can help pass the data localization and privacy regulations of different countries due to its very decentralized and secure approach towards the transactions?
Actually, very much. In fact, we have the JP Morgan Research Labs where we're doing a lot on blockchain technologies and the use of blockchain technologies in multiple of our spheres, right? So whether it is for regulatory, whether it is for fraud and risk, there are multiple areas that we have. And we've actually done a lot of early POCs. We've done, a lot of studies and white papers around that, and we should soon see that deployment actually on the field for these technologies. So we truly believe that that's going to be the next big thing, and we've invested very, very heavily in that segment.
Thank you, ma'am. I believe that answers the question from the student.
Any other questions?
Yes, actually, I have one question from my end as well. So, like, how do there are these a lot of different things that you have to incorporate. Like you said, there are a lot of people who are underbanked or not at all, into banking yet. So, how do you try to incorporate all of these, and how do you try to sort of reach out to all of these, people?
Right. So yeah, so if you look at India itself, right, as a demography, we had before, and I'll give you an example of pre-demonetization and post-demonetization days, right? Just look at the amount of digital solutions that we were using before demonetization, and it was close to that, 15% of the population that was actually using digital channels, right? Now, from there, after demonetization happened, you saw a huge spike in using of digital channels for financial transactions, right? And that went to about 65% odd. Now, so that is one example of how we bring in people into the scheme. The second is, I talked about the whole underbanked, which is still 2 billion, and of which maybe close to 60% of that is in places like ours, like India. And what are we doing with respect to trying to bring them into the banking framework? There are multiple efforts that are happening. In fact, when I was in MasterCard, we were trying to see how we could use the MasterCard network in, say, tier 2, tier 3 cities, so that we are able to take the digital solutions and digital platforms into those places as well, right? So that's one of the things that happens. The second is, can we use Aadhaar-based payments, right? And it's not necessarily, so that the Aadhaar-based payments was another big initiative that we had in India. And how can we make, just the transactions or providing of loans, etc., very easy to some of these people based on Aadhaar, potentially, not necessarily with having to open a physical, going to a physical bank and opening an account. And how can we make that a lot more easier through the digital channels? So multiple of these efforts are actually happening to ensure we make things and user experiences so easy that it is, even not just on smartphones, but you're able to use your, the older devices to be able to get onto the financial bandwagon, right? we also had, and it's just, again, not just in India, we use things like Huduma cards in, say, Kenya, where you are trying to do your entire public distribution system was on the Huduma card, right? So which was your identity, and whether it was government money that was going in, it was going into those accounts, of people with those Huduma cards. So it's just about making things a lot more simpler and easier so that we're able to bring more and more people into the financial segment with making things a lot less process heavy, right? So I think that's how it's happening. And it's always, there are newer things happening in that space, but these are some of the things that we're doing right now.
Sure, ma'am. Thank you for the answer. And we have one more question, if you would.
Sure.
take it. Yeah. Okay, so will blockchain technology make physical banks obsolete? Students?
Well, I am a firm believer that physical banks will probably never get obsolete. And that's what I was saying earlier on, right? We'll always want somebody to manage the vault, because the digital banking, the digitization, and everything that's happening is really the innovation of the edge. We talk about neobanks, right? Today, all of that is innovation of the edge. But you truly go back to a large government bank or a large bank that you trust to manage your vault. And if there are no banks, that are giving out, say, loans, that are doing all the other things around investments, managing private equity and things like that, I think the financial sector itself will get badly impacted. So I don't think we can ever do without banks, but there are many, many pockets of opportunity, right, that places like blockchain can actually help us. And the one thing that I probably didn't call out earlier on is, if I look at automation, if I look at everything that banks have globally, they're only 25% automated, perhaps, So that 75% is the opportunity. But none of these that I called out today are going to actually do away with banks. Banks are going to continue because they help the economy, they help drive the entire financial system, right? So they will continue to be. But, in terms of better user experiences, can we do things, way cooler than we are doing today? Yes, that's an opportunity that there is for all the innovation. I hope that helps answer your question. That was a great question.
Yes, ma'am, definitely. So we have.
Thank you so much, guys. I actually need to drop off. I had a lot of back-to-back meetings today, so I need to drop off. But if you have further questions, you can just send them my way and I'll definitely get back.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Sirisha, for giving us this wide breadth of fintech and the opportunities of innovation in this space. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful being with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Over to you, Sugandhan.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I believe we have come to the end of our morning session. So now we'll all be going for our lunch breaks, and we'll be returning back at 2 p.m. where we'll be having discipline-wise sessions, which will be happening parallelly by industry delegates. So we'll be having talks from people coming from computer science background, electrical engineering, civil engineering, and we'll be having 3 talks from each department. So I kindly request you guys to make sure you're all back at 2 p.m. The talks coming forth are very, very exciting, to be honest. I'm pretty sure some of them you might not have heard before, some of the topics, and these people have immense experience and knowledge, which I'm sure all of us will be able to learn and take away by attending their talks. So I believe we can all go for now and come back again at 2 p.m.
Thank you, ma'am. So we can wind up for now.
Yes, thank you.